We're going to go through the whole thing again because this will be showed separately on TV. Welcome to the 2014 Candidates Forum, brought to you by Northeast Independent and the North Kingstown Chamber of Commerce. I'm Liz Boardman, Managing Editor of the Independent Newspapers, and I'm joined by Chris Keegan, our Associate Editor, and Martha Pugh, Executive Director of the North Kingstown Chamber of Commerce. Tonight we've brought together the candidates for General Assembly. For the audience, we ask that you remain silent during the forum and refrain from any commentary or applause until the end of the evening. That will allow us to ask more questions. And if you could please turn off your cell phones so they're not going off during the forum as well. The format, each candidate will make a 2-minute opening statement, and then Chris and Martha will begin asking questions. The candidates will have 1 minute to answer. The candidates are seated in alphabetical order by the race. We will start left to right, moving from left to right, and then moving down one with the start of each question. So Julie will have the first question, Doreen will have the second question, and on down the line. Closing statements will also be 2 minutes, but will begin from Senator Sheehan. The questions tonight came from the Independent, the Chamber, our readership, Chamber members, and from the audience. If anybody else has a question they'd like to add, I'll walk through it before we get started. They will be asked randomly. We have 2 bowls, one for Chamber questions and one for everyone else. Maura, please raise your hand, will be keeping time. She'll give a 10-second and a 5-second warning, and then the bell will sound to say that time's up. A quick reminder that this is a forum, not a debate. We are looking for the candidates' opinions, and you are asked to not attack your opponents or ask them direct questions. If Chris or Martha or I feel a candidate has been attacked, we will reserve the right to allow that person a 30-second rebuttal. Video from tonight's forum will be available on our website, Independent RI, the Chamber's website, northkingstown.com, and replayed on public access television, Cox Channel 17 and Verizon Channel 37. We will also have stories about it in next week's paper, and the election tabs, which have candidate information, are available at the back of the room. Thank you again for coming out, braving the weather and the tree branch and all that, and I will turn the evening over to Chris and Martha.
Each candidate gets 2 minutes for opening statements, starting with Ms. Kisner.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Julie Casimiro, and I'm the endorsed Democratic candidate for House District 31. First, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to the organizers for bringing all of the candidates together. I grew up in Cranston and actually graduated from Cranston High School West and earned a bachelor's degree in marketing from Providence College. My business experience includes 25 years in the corporate world in leadership positions. 6 years ago, I made the move to the nonprofit sector and have dedicated myself to helping vulnerable children and families. Currently, I am the Director of Development for Family Service of Rhode Island. I have a long history of public service through volunteering and serving on various boards throughout the state. I am a 2008 graduate of Leadership Rhode Island. I am a graduate of the 2012 Rhode Island State Police Citizens Academy. My overall general views: I support a woman's right to choose. I support marriage equality. I'm fiscally conservative. When elected, I will work to create jobs, provide more state aid to our school, rebuild the infrastructure to put people back to work while creating better roads and bridges to support small business growth. I am seeking office because I have a long history of public service. This is the next natural step in the progression. I am also seeking office as I know I can get results. It's time for real leadership in House District 31. It's about results and not rhetoric. The state is facing significant issues, and we need leaders who are not afraid to tackle the big issues. It's not about Christmas trees. We need leaders who are going to get Rhode Island moving in the right direction. Not leaders who grandstand and promote extremist agendas. I can work with both parties to get things done, to get results that will move the state forward. Experience does matter. The residents of District 31 deserve leaders who can get things done.
Am I all set? Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming out and being here and being engaged. I have an opening statement here, but I chose not to read it because yesterday we went to the North Kingstown High School where it's supposed to be fun and light. And the first thing that my opponents attacked me was that I didn't graduate high school. On the contrary, I was very ill in high school. I had 6 surgeries, I had 2 blood transfusions, and I had a breast removed at the age of 17. So for her to attack my integrity was just wrong. Okay, I did go back, I did get my diploma, and I did go to high school, and I went to college. I have 1 year of college, and I'm very proud of being a member of CCRI. I am also on the board of higher education. And higher education means a lot to me. I'm going to tell you why. Because people that couldn't finish high school because of an illness or because of something happened in their family, I am able to get those parents back to school. I've worked with the director and the president of Community College of Rhode Island. I also got low tuition rates for the parents, and I got about 24 parents back to school. I got them to graduate. I got them to get some college education. I got them out in the job community. I turned a negative into a positive. I have ran this entire campaign on positive and no personal attacks, and I will continue to do so. I'm proud of where I am. I am the first Republican woman in leadership, in Democratic leadership ever on the House side. I help women that had a breast removed. I go and counsel them and give them my plastic surgeon's name. Dr. Wallach was phenomenal. He made me whole again. So I'm out there and I'm helping every woman in the community, and I will continue to do so. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Bob Craven. I'm the state representative. Been there for 2 years from District 32. 2 years ago, I really didn't seek the office. The office kind of sought me in the sense that I was called about 2 hours before the filing deadline. And I made the decision to run because I had real concerns after a conversation with my son and contemplating that over those 2 hours where he said, "Hey Dad, you know how you yell at the newspaper in the morning sometimes when you hear about political things?" He said, "I think you forfeit the right to yell at the newspaper if you're not willing to go up there and do something about it." So I did. And I think I accomplished a lot in 2 years for a first-year legislator. I was able to author and get passed a reform of the Rhode Island estate tax, which took away that damaging cliff that if you exceed the exemption, you have to go back and pay the first dollar. Now $1.5 million is exempt. I was successful in getting the House Finance Committee and through the legislature and signed by the governor a 22% reduction in the corporate tax. Original art is now tax-free, sales tax-free statewide. These and other accomplishments were recognized by Speaker Mattiello when there was a leadership change, and he asked me to chair the Municipal Government Committee. I think I accomplished a lot in 2 years. I think I'm qualified. I've been in the public sector for 31 years in my legal career, and I'm anxious to go back to finish the job. Thank you.
I'm Sharon Gamba. I'm running for state representative for all the reasons that my opponent just stated. And this is not a personal attack in any way, shape, or form. I commend the work that he's done up there and that he's tried to do. However, what he's accomplished has not created any new jobs as far as I'm concerned. It has not made people want to stay in Rhode Island. We're still exporting our seniors and our children. We made baby steps, but we're at a crossroads right now. And being in business for 35 years and having the 30 employees that I do have gives me a different kind of an outlook and a different kind of experience. What that does is, there are so many small businesses that just aren't heard. You know, our voices are never heard, our families are suffering for it, and I honestly can say that, you know, as we get into the debate and you ask questions, I hope you ask the good questions that can really give you answers from a different perspective. I'm running because I lost my daughter to another state already. I go door to door, and you know, that's one of the reasons I decided to do it again. There are so many people in this state that are ready to leave. They're waiting and waiting, but nothing's happening. It's not happening quick enough, and the decline has been so long, going down for so long, that we need immediate results now. We need some business people up at the State House, because, you know, attorneys, they're great for what they do, but seriously, people are saying, you know, we want to get jobs to Rhode Island, we want to get businesses to come here. I'm wondering why we want to stay, and that's really the number one question that you hear from all businesses right now. So that's why I'm running.
Hello, my name is James Callahan. I'm a candidate in Senate District 35. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce and independent newspapers for hosting us here tonight. It's great to see these candidates. Great to have this great crowd. And it's also good to see Mr. G again. Of course, he's hard to miss in that t-shirt. I'm too used to it by now. I'm running for District 35, the Senate seat, because I want to make Rhode Island a better place. I'm deeply committed to the future of this state and this district. I'm a former prosecutor and currently an attorney in private practice in Wickford, and I'm now president of the town council in Narragansett. I was born and raised and live in Narragansett now with my wife and an infant son. For too long, our young people have left our great state for lack of opportunity. I've seen family and friends move out of Rhode Island because they could not find jobs. That has to end. We need to change the culture of our business community and our legislature. We need to enact real ethics reform and restore a measure of trust and confidence in our state government. We also need business-friendly statutes that make it easier to do business in Rhode Island, so we can start to show other businesses, other states, and their own citizens we actually do mean business. As our manufacturing jobs dried up years ago, we did nothing. Now we have dozens of empty factories, and our unemployment rate runs rampant. As a former prosecutor and on the town council in Narragansett, I have made tough decisions, and I'll do the same in the State House. For too long, we've taken the easy way out and failed to plan for the future. As I said, an infant son at home, I want to ensure that someday, if he chooses to, unless he's sick of us by then, which he might be, he can raise his own family and have a high-paying job here in Rhode Island. I can't guarantee that, but I want to at least have him and other kids to have the opportunity to stay. It's time to make that a reality. It's time for a new generation of leadership and ideas for Rhode Island and for this district. Thank you, and I ask for your vote on November 4th.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for your invitation to join this discussion. The reason I'm here and running for the Rhode Island Senate is due to my disappointment and frustration every time I pick up the newspaper or turn on the radio news to learn of some deal gone bad, some guy on the take, or some politician who's broken his oath of loyalty and honor to serve. We see the results. We're one of the highest cost states in the nation for citizens, taxpayers, businesses, government, and even dead people if they haven't already moved to Florida. It doesn't have to be that way. We've got tens of thousands of smart, hardworking, honest, dedicated individuals who can lead. And leaders we need. I'd like to be one of them. Not for special interests, but to serve you and others like us who just want honest people in government. I bring my experience as an independent thinker and doer, a naval Vietnam veteran, an IBM Corporation alumnus, a successful small business person for almost 40 years, a father of 7, and a bunch of grandchildren. I'm a senior citizen, a community service person, and volunteer and so on. Please help me get Rhode Island back on track. Thank you.
I wish to thank the Northeast Independent and the NK Chamber of Commerce for holding this candidates forum, providing voters with quality information from the candidates directly. It's a valuable public service. Thank you. My name is Senator Jim Sheehan. I proudly represent Narragansett and North Kingstown in the State Senate. I hold a master's in history and am an educator in Warwick. I've called Rhode Island my home all my life, and I live in North Kingstown with my lovely wife, who's sitting in the front row, Meredith, and 3 wonderful children. I care deeply about the future of all of our children, along with our state. I seek re-election because I believe that through civic involvement, we truly can make a difference in our community, like many others sitting here today. We need elected officials with experience, leadership skills, and principled determination, unlike my opponent here, to make the changes needed to move our state forward. I believe my record demonstrates that I possess these qualities. Indeed, I've been a strong advocate for good government, the economy, and quality of life issues in our state. For example, I co-sponsored the Separation of Powers Amendment, offered greater access to public records, improved transparency and accountability for our quasi-public agencies, and I have also sponsored legislation to overhaul the former EDC, now called Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, to make it more effective and customer-friendly. Further, I've been involved in preserving open space and maintaining our state's quality of life, including getting an arts-free state approved through the Assembly. There's still much work ahead, though. With your support, I will continue to focus on improving our state's business climate, making sure that our government is a true partner in this endeavor. I thank you and would appreciate your support on election day.
Okay, our first question starts with Mrs. Casimiro. This idea about charter schools taking the place of low or non-performing schools to give parents a choice for their children is a good one when performing schools are not available. North Kingstown schools are high-performing and at a higher rate than local charter schools. Yet this year, charter schools' tuition will siphon off almost $1 million from our school district. One such school is currently looking to get approval to do an addition, which if approved will only make matters worse. How would you propose to eliminate charter schools from being financed out of our high-performing school district budget?
It's a great question. I do serve on the board of 2 charter schools, and I'm very proud about that. I'm also a big proponent of public education, having grown up in the public school system. Charter schools are not going away, and we have to stop making it an us and them situation. Charter schools are an option that many families appreciate. Once elected, I would form a commission to figure out how we can do a different funding formula so that no school suffers because of charter schools and vice versa.
Thank you. I am a big fan of the public school. North Kingstown has one of the best schools in the state. I love the students, I love the democracy there, I love everything that North Kingstown stands for. However, when it comes to charter schools, it is your choice where to send your child. If you want to send your child to a charter school, that is your decision. But I am a firm believer in the public school system. Thank you.
Conceptually, charter schools are a good idea. In reality, they take away from the opportunity for the local community to fund its own public schools. As a result, I am opposed to the funding of charter schools, especially when it comes at the expense of properly funding our local schools. They're fairly high performing, but I did have an opportunity to hear part of the debate between the 2 school committee candidates today. Mr. Cerisi indicated specifically that there's such a difficult time trying to fund so many programs that are positive in nature for our public school, but they don't have the funds. Charter schools take away from those opportunities to do the primary job, which is support public schools. That's the municipality's job.
I do agree that the public schools in North Kingstown are run really well and the kids are happy and well educated. However, I fully support having charter schools. You know, how many parents send their children to private schools and the money still stays within the school system? I know that money is taken away from North Kingstown schools when it comes to charter schools, but if you talk to parents, they want to have that option. And parents who pay taxes and pay lots of taxes should have the ability to send their children to charter schools. They are not going away. And a lot of parents I know are on the list and really look forward to hitting that lottery to making sure that their kids can go to a charter school. So I believe that if we have all these children, we're paying all these taxes, and so many kids are going to private schools, there has to be money somewhere that we can make it work, that charter schools work. So I'm a full support of charter schools.
I'm a public school graduate, as are all my siblings. All four of us graduated in Narragansett. The charter schools in some places are doing extraordinarily well. I think specifically up in Blackstone Valley. And the competition they provide to public schools in a way I think lets everybody raise their game. It's not a competition per se, but it helps everyone move forward. I know the funding formula could be tweaked to help charter schools and public schools get the money they deserve, but I think there's a place for both charter schools and public schools in our system. And like I said, some of the results can't be denied. They're really fascinating the way some kids perform in those schools. But in District 35, Narragansett, North Kingstown, South Kingston, and East Greenwich are very high-performing schools. So I can see why that would be an issue in these towns. But with some tweaks, I think we can make some progress.
Well, I believe in freedom of choice by parents who want to educate their children. I think they should have a choice. I feel that it can be a political issue, and sometimes when it gets politicized, we fail to realize what the true story is. I think a charter school is, generally speaking, open to all applicants. It's my understanding that the selection of applicants is done with a rotating barrel and numbers inside. As long as we're not denying children a good education with charter schools, then I think I'm a believer in charter schools. I also like the idea of competition in schools. And to the extent that a charter school or an independent school can generate some competition, I'm not against that. Thank you.
Charter schools were founded as a means to explore unconventional, out-of-the-box methodologies in providing education to students. In principle, I don't have anything against charter schools. I certainly don't. I wish them well. But the track record has been that the students who ordinarily attend charter schools are ones that are what I call self-selected. Parents that tend to be motivated and want to send their students to that particular school. North Kingstown has great schools. I was raised up through the school system. It's great. I think we've actually propelled the course of charter schools for political reasons on the backs of failing schools, such as some maybe in Providence or Central Falls and other cities. And I think they have difficulty primarily through socio-economic reasons. But nevertheless, that's how charter schools have got a foothold. I'm concerned when resources are pulled off and away from the public school system because it's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul sometimes, and I would think about that issue a bit more.
Question. Do you support changes in public education, like teacher evaluations and the use of standardized testing as a requirement for graduation made by Commissioner Gist? What changes would you like to see occur to improve public education in Wisconsin?
I do not believe in standardized testing. I think the teachers today know what their students need, know what their students need to acquire their diplomas, know what their students need to achieve to move on. As far as teachers' evaluations are concerned, I think everybody should be evaluated. I mean, I am a small business owner and I plan on evaluating my employees. And when I was working in my other jobs, I was evaluated. So yes, everybody should be evaluated. And should it be once a year, once every 3 years? That's up to them, not me. But yes, everybody should be evaluated, and I do not believe in standardized testing. Thank you.
I'm not a fan of standardized testing either. I have found through my own experience, my wife's a school teacher in Narragansett, that teachers spend most of their day between evaluation as well as teaching to the test, as the teachers refer to it. Every student should be held accountable, and every teacher should be held accountable for the performance of those students. I do not think that what was proposed by Commissioner Gist worked. The General Assembly, as a result, delayed standardized tests as a requirement at graduation until 2017, and I believe Commissioner Gist continued it until 2019. There's a better way of going about it, but we certainly need to continue the concept of holding students and teachers accountable.
I believe there should be certain criteria for graduation from class to class, but I also know that there are so many different learning styles today that there might not have been years ago, so standardized testing might be something that needs to be actually looked at in a different way because of the learning styles of so many children. But I also do agree that teachers should be evaluated on a regular basis. I don't know if it should be 1 or 2 years. I think 3 years might be too long, but reevaluations are just to affirm that, you know, someone's doing a good job or where their weaknesses might be. So I think it's important to be evaluated that way for a teacher, for sure.
I think that testing does have a place in the schools. I think that tests prepare you for life in some respects. I mean, tonight we're all up here and this is a test. Getting ready for this is something to do back in school. And of course, the Common Core involves a new approach, but any new approach is bound to have its ups and downs. The fact of the matter is that Rhode Island students don't rank very high nationally, right in the middle of the road, in both reading and math. And Massachusetts is close to the top. We're doing something that makes us fall behind. As a nation, we're not much better. Among the qualifying nations, we're at the bottom end of reading, math, and science. So we have to do something to make ourselves better, make our students better. I think we have great teachers. A new approach is always something that we can try. As for the testing graduation requirement, I don't think that's necessary. But I think testing overall, throughout the school year and throughout the 4 years you're there, there's nothing wrong with that. It gives us a measuring stick, and we need that. And so do teachers sometimes.
Well, first of all, I support Deborah Gist, who is a steadfast and dedicated person who wants to make improvements. Now, I understand there have been some ups and downs, and she does not enjoy universal popularity, but I think her heart is in the right place. Here we are in a state right next to Massachusetts where the MCAS system is working just fabulously. Why is it that one state can do something so well and all the other states seem to struggle? Well, one reason I think Massachusetts has been successful in MCAS is because they've really poured a lot of money into not only teacher training, but making sure that the curriculum is good and is demanding. So.
I think there's a place for standardized testing, but I'd like to see it used as a measurement for improving student scores, for improving student performance. Currently, under what I call the corporate model, we're looking at more of a punitive measure. If your school doesn't do well, they'll shut the school down. If students don't do well, they don't get a diploma. And there are many students, we put all of our students into one school, public school system, and of course there are others, but public school system, and we say that they're all going to college. There are many tracks. There's vocational, technical tracks, and so forth. And students, particularly that have a disadvantage in some way, maybe have an IEP, aren't necessarily going to pass that one, say, NECAP test. The NECAP test itself wasn't designed to be a standardized test. It was actually a test to judge where students were. So it was apples and oranges there. Evaluations are fine. Unfortunately, I can tell you from personal experience that the current system we have has been suffocatingly bureaucratic, with over 50% of the teacher's evaluation based on student performance and outcomes versus observations and other things. Thank you.
I do not believe standardized testing should be a requirement for graduation. I do, however, believe our teachers do need to be evaluated on a regular basis. We need to give our children the very best start in life, and it starts in the classroom. We need to set the bar high for our kids and for our teachers.
leader in a Boy Scout program, so this is not me saying that. We are constantly being advocates for protection of our children, training, background checks, and multiple leaders for every Scout event. This is a paramount concern for us. In light of the newest domestic abuse scandals in the NFL, would you be in favor of stricter legislation, and what other actions can be taken to combat this horrendous issue?
I think that's my question.
It is, Mr.
The NFL scandal, so to speak, I think has received some necessary attention because the NFL had shown a propensity to cover those types of things up. But I think it just reveals problems within our society that I see every day when I prosecute cases at the municipal level for both the city of East Providence as well as the town of Charleston. I think that domestic issues are dealt with quite effectively by the district courts, particularly the pretrial services units. And as far as using background checks to clear people, I think it ought to be mandatory across the board. There's too many opportunities for predators and people who are not safe for our children to be with to involve themselves in such public service. Thank you.
I also agree that there should be, we should take every precaution possible when it comes to our children. I believe that background checks are absolutely necessary. We need to protect our young ones at all costs. When it comes to the domestic violence issue, I'm really passionate about that, and it doesn't just fall within children. A couple of years back, I witnessed something that really drastically changed the way I think about all kinds of domestic violence. A woman was being dragged down the road. At first I thought she had a heart attack and someone was moving her to the side of the road, and then I realized that she was being dragged by a person into the woods. I ended up calling the police, spending the whole day in the police station, and he was a habitual abuser to this woman. And so I do believe that in all cases there should be background checks for people, and I believe that this issue needs to be looked at. I do think we need stronger laws when it comes to domestic violence.
As a former prosecutor in the Attorney General's office, I prosecuted child molestation cases, child abuse cases, and domestic violence cases at length for 8 years. In a lot of respects, they're very difficult cases because they involve abused victims who've been abused for years and years and years, who have fear of their abusers. For every case that you have success in, there's 2 or 3 that go away because people don't want to go forward. Other people don't want to help out. It's a difficult issue, but I think the laws and the books right now are pretty effective in some ways. The Attorney General's office does a good job prosecuting their cases, and the domestic advocates in the courthouses do a great job. So I think it's, of course, never going to be an issue that goes away. I think we're addressing it as well as we can now, and any improvements we can make in the future are welcome.
Well, it's sad in our society that this situation occurs, but first of all, as far as the Scouts are concerned, they do an outstanding job, and I think there's a minimal amount of abuse there. Obviously, a background check is almost mandatory. I think good leadership is also aware of the problems and the potential problems, and we've got to rely on the integrity and the decency of people who are in charge to make sure that their example is followed by the people that are working for them. So, I'm always leery about new laws and more regulations to address a problem. I would just as soon have a personal leadership skills that can get the word out that certain conduct is unacceptable. Thank you.
Domestic violence is unacceptable in our society, and I think the case with the NFL recently highlights a couple things. Certainly, possibly the use of steroids over a longer period of time, their impact on people and our society. Obviously, prize winning, it seems, more than sportsmanship. But also maybe even the breakdown in society itself. We don't talk about this much, but I think the social fabric of our society is coming apart at the seams. I think people becoming less civil to one another. I think it shows, and the breakdown of the family itself lies at the nucleus, and that's why we see domestic violence, and we need to focus on it. I would support increasing penalties for anyone who would, commit violence against their loved ones, because that's at the heart of the family, and without that, we really can't build a strong society. Thank you.
I think it's imperative that we do everything we can to protect our children. I work in the social services field. I'm with children every day, and I am with kids who are completely at risk of child abuse, neglect, and other violent situations. We're required by DCYF to do proper background checks, fingerprint checks, and child abuse and neglect checks. I think that is imperative for all volunteers, and I would support legislation that does everything it can to support our children and families.
Domestic violence is a very important issue. The laws should be stricter. No man should ever put their hands on a woman, and no woman should put their hands on a man. You cannot forget that women abuse the men as well. That's a fact, and there's the statistics to prove it. Background checks should be done for anybody that works with children, no matter if you're in the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts. It doesn't matter. We need background checks. Our children are the most important thing that we have. My daughter, Gabrielle, is sitting right there. I would do anything I have to do to protect her or any member of my family. So I agree with Senator Sheehan. The laws need to be stricter, and we need to protect our children at all times.
Last year, the General Assembly cut the corporate tax rate and adopted combined reporting. Are you content with these changes? What changes would you propose, Ms. Gamble?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Absolutely. Last year, the General Assembly cut the corporate tax rate and adopted combined reporting. Are you content with these changes? What changes would you propose?
The corporate tax rate, it's great that they did cut that a bit, but most of the businesses are S corps. So that really doesn't even apply to most of small business. Now, if you're a corporation, that's great. I don't think it goes far enough. I think that we need to encourage business people to come to Rhode Island, stay in Rhode Island. I think that we need to simplify the tax codes and the regulations. I think that we need to allow Rhode Island companies to access all federal economic development incentives. No, I don't think it went far enough.
I think one thing we could probably do is look to either eliminate or phase in or phase out the $500 minimum corporate tax. If we do that, we can give small businesses that start up a chance to start up without an extra fee. Additionally, as an attorney, we do a lot of regulation work, and we're in a couple of fights with different municipalities that are forcing these businesses to do things that are just ridiculous. I mean, these regulations and statutes in the books are forcing one business to implement a system that's going to cost them $20,000 or $30,000 that might never be used. So it's things like that. I don't want to get too many specifics, but it's things like that that are really hurting our business climate and hurting our small businesses. So I look to ease the regulations and try to limit the burden that some of these businesses have.
Gee, I agree with you. The minimum corporate tax of $500 every year is it's just kind of like a thorn in your side. Thank you, Rhode Island State Department of Revenue. It's not only the $500, especially for small businesses, but it's just the idea that they're looking for any way to stick it to us business people and throw a little bit more revenue into the pool. I think, I just had a great appointment, I lost it. It's the combined reporting, I think that's a revenue neutral idea. It doesn't really make much difference one way or the other, the plus or the minuses. And we can schedule a separate session to talk about taxation. Thank you.
I agree with the changes that we made. In fact, I had legislation in to lower the corporate tax from 9% to 7%, and I was a strong advocate on the Senate side to do just that. We also, if you file a personal income tax return, we did lower it several years ago from 9.9 to 5.99. So if you're filing that way, that would have helped you as well. I think we need to look at our sales tax structure to make it at least competitive within our New England states. And I also have a priority bill, which I've had in the last 2 years, which was to eliminate the minimum $500 business tax. I also have another bill in to give a further incentive of a lowering of your corporate tax if you add additional jobs, which would have to be verified as well. And of course, we need to continue streamlining our regulations. I've done so as chair of oversight, had hearings to continue to do just that. It's one thing to lower the tax, but we also have to think of permitting and regulations that hurt businesses as well. Okay.
I absolutely agree with the changes. I think Rhode Island is not a very business-friendly state, and this is one step in that direction of making us much more business-friendly and much more business competitive. We need to make Rhode Island competitive, and right now we're losing business, we're losing residents, we're losing jobs. So I do agree with that.
The idea that you have to pay $500 to start a business in the state of Rhode Island is absolutely absurd. I agree with Senator Sheehan about the legislation that we can draft together, and we can try to at least cut that in half or get rid of it altogether. We did a fiscal analysis on this $500 corporate tax. It brings in millions of dollars in revenue to the state, and that is the reason why they're not cutting it. But if we were to cut it or get rid of it, we might have some more businesses coming into the state of Rhode Island. I think it's absurd. I would love to see that go 100%.
I think one of the things I've learned in the last 2 years about the business community is that the business community knows best what's best for the business community. As a result, I think that the House, on many occasions, especially this past year, brought in business leaders to give us advice on what would be a good idea to help business flourish. We did some of those things. Cutting the corporate minimum tax is something that I personally favor, but cutting red tape, and quite frankly, state government should permit a business to begin operation by going through the red tape process and finish it no more than 60 days after they apply. I think that would do more to create jobs and invite business to come to Rhode Island and expand within Rhode Island.
This is a question from the audience. Are you for or against a constitutional convention, and why?
I think a constitutional convention is an interesting idea, but as was in the paper today, I think there are 3 or 4 people who were delegates to that convention actually spoke out against it. The possibility that special interests do take over the convention is very real. And I think that in the state legislature, senators and representatives have the ability to make changes. And I think that's what we need within the legislature. We don't need a convention to help us do things. We shouldn't. Whether it's ethics reform, a line item veto, or something like that to that effect, we don't need a convention for what the legislature should do. Legislators, like all these candidates, should do it. That's the problem with our state. We're not getting things done. So I don't support it because I think there has to be a change in the State House, and we have to make the changes happen that way, because the convention only comes around every 10 years. If we wait for that every 10 years, we're not going to get anywhere.
Well, the convention is, I believe in the Constitutional Convention. It allows us to do what the Constitution has given us the right to do, and that is make changes. And boy, there's an awful lot of chaff and scatter going up from people who oppose it. Why do they oppose it? Well, in many cases, they're special interest people who don't want to see the status quo change. I am not in favor of the status quo. I like to shake it up a little bit and do something different. I think there are a lot of issues that we could address with a constitutional convention, including ethics and some of the other things we all read about. So let's give it a try.
I'm going to take a different approach here. I'm sincerely on the fence as to which way I'm going to vote on this. I can see merits on both sides of the issue. In favor of Concom, I do like the open process, the people getting involved in being able to short circuit some of the institutional political players that are up at the State House on any given day during the session. And there are issues that we need to confront. Now, whether or not the General Assembly will do that is a question. I can tell you that I was the prime sponsor of ethics amendment to restore the ethics jurisdiction on the General Assembly, and nearly succeeded this year, and hopefully will in the next year or so. But on the opposing side, I do realize and recognize that there is a lot of potential for damage too, in terms of special interest monies or money in politics in general that may be able to have an influence in that process that just doesn't change the law, that might change for a year or change for 2 years, but it would change fundamentally the basic law of our state, the Constitution.
I do not support a constitutional convention. I do believe that we need reform in this state, and things do need to change, but we need to avoid what happened with the last constitutional convention where it became an abortion rally. I don't want to see women's rights set back decades. We need to elect legislators who can do the job that they're elected to do and make the changes that we ask them to make.
At first, I was not in favor of a constitutional convention, but yes, I am now. And we need to make the changes to succeed in the state of Rhode Island.
I think the constitutional convention is a difficult issue at best. But the General Assembly has the power that has been given by the Constitution to pass any proposed changes to the Rhode Island Constitution and place that on the ballot. The last constitutional convention in 1986, I don't think it performed well, and it was an expensive outcome. One of the first things that Speaker Mattiello did would have been one of the prime issues if a constitutional convention were to be adopted. Eliminate the master levy. The General Assembly did it in 5 days, or the House did it in 5 days, and sent it over to the Senate on a 71-3 vote. The General Assembly can do it if it wants to do it. And as opposed to using it for social engineering, I think that ethics and things such as that can be done by the General Assembly. I too sponsored that legislation in the House to have the ethics laws apply. Thanks.
I do believe in a constitutional convention, and I'll tell you why. Over the past 2 years at the State House, we've watched bills come before the legislators. The ethics bill, you guys both passed that, and I applaud you for it out of committee. But within 1 day, it was shot down by the speaker. In fact, he had such a meltdown over it, you could hear screaming all the way up in the room that we were sitting in. So if the speaker doesn't want it to happen, it's not going to happen. There are things that we need. We need a governor's line item veto, and we definitely need to have ethics in the state of Rhode Island. Look at what happened over the past year. Three major things with the General Assembly that needed to be addressed. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, we absolutely do need one. And I would have to think that the people of Rhode Island are not going to social engineer. I think that, you know, we're where we are because we've evolved over time, but we need a good, clean government, and it hasn't happened yet, so I don't have faith in it happening.
This is a reader submitted question. The General Assembly passed a bunch of sneaky taxes. The $40 internet sales tax for one. What will you do to stop increasing fees on everything, Mr. G?
Ooh, good question. And that sneaky $40 tax is going to affect all of us. We all use the internet. We all purchase stuff from the internet. And the common cry is, well, we're hurting local businesses. I think it's possible as a local business person. I survive against a lot of direct competition, but it's still possible to operate a business with an internet handy and provide superior service and good quality products available. And so I think that the question, though, of raising additional revenue from sources that are difficult to get the money from, and the internet is certainly one of them.
I don't agree with, well, excuse me, I think internet companies certainly have an advantage over brick and mortar. But I don't like to increase fees, no one does, and I think we need to send a different message to businesses and the people in the state alike that we've been reducing tax structure, we actually with reducing our corporate income tax from 9% to 7%, we have not only the most competitive rate in New England, but I believe also that would include New York and New Jersey and maybe one other state, so that's a very good thing. We need to do more. The sales tax, I said, needs to be more competitive with surrounding states so that we don't see people buying big ticket items over the border and making Seekonk happy, but not Rhode Islanders, particularly in East Providence and other East Bay areas. So again, it's a message thing, and I think maybe that's what the questioner was asking, relating to, is that we're sending the wrong message. We need to send the right message and stay on message. Thank you.
I don't agree with this fee at all. We need meaningful legislation up at the General Assembly. We need issues of substance. I don't want to increase fees when we just reduce tax bases. We need to put Rhode Island back on track.
Well, I'm happy to report that I did not vote for the $40 tax increase. My voting record on tax increases is impeccable. Our people in the state of Rhode Island and the people that I represent, they work too darn hard for the state of Rhode Island to keep going into their pockets and taking their hard-earned money. And I will continue to not support any tax increases.
I think we have to stop nickel and diming people.
I think it's death by 1,000 cuts. It wasn't just that internet tax, it was your state inspection, it was your license renewal. You know, there are a lot of little hidden fee increases in this session. So yeah, it is death by 1,000 cuts, and I think that we need to stop doing that, because those are little messages that are sent out through the community that they're little money grabs, and they're aggravating to people. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, we absolutely have to figure out another way. It all comes down to business friendliness and creating jobs and having businesses want to come here, stay here, have our seniors stay here, spend their money here, and have our children stay here and spend their money here. I mean, we really do need to stop doing that. Everybody knows it's happening. You know, people are awake now, they're not sleeping anymore. So everybody knows.
Somehow in the state, we have a high tax burden, but our roads and bridges are falling apart, and we have no funding for school construction projects. It doesn't seem possible. And at the same time, a couple years ago, our pension plans are falling apart as well. So the money that we're taking in is obviously not going to the right places. I think the basic answer to that question is we have to increase the people that come here for jobs. We need more jobs in this economy. We need more people here who are working and more businesses that are succeeding in our state. The only way you can do that is to entice more business to come here, and the ones that are here expand. We have to capitalize on our strengths: tourism, marine sciences, green energy, and high tech. And tourism, of course. We have a beautiful state, great resources, and great people. We have URI, RIC, CCRI. We need to make those things, help our businesses, and help themselves. So it has to be a wholesale change.
When a collective bargaining agreement contract has expired, are you in favor of the previous contract continuing until a new contract is in place?
Yes, I do. And I'll state why I do. Because without a contract, you don't have any terms of service. There's nothing in place. And I've heard people say that, well, this inures to the benefit of teachers or even myself. I can tell you that under continuing contract, as it's called, you know, if you're at your top step, which is equivalent to getting promotion over 10 years of your first 10 years of service, you don't get an increase over that. You're getting 0% raise. I did that for 3, 4, 5 years, probably over my tenure. I think there needs to be some understanding in place between employer and employee in terms of service, what you're required to do, what you need to do. So I think that's one way to try to avert what could otherwise be a labor dispute that I don't wish to see any students suffer as a result. Thank you.
I agree with Senator Sheehan. Without a contract, problems actually exacerbate. The taxpayers will always bear the burden when the labor dispute erupts. So I do agree with the Senator.
there needs to be a contract in play. Without a contract in play, others will suffer, the taxpayers will suffer, the children will suffer. So there should always be a contract in play.
I don't think contracts should be suspended upon expiration. It should be the spur to begin negotiations long before that day comes. But that was challenged in East Providence during my tenure as the solicitor over there. And I can tell you that when the unilateral contract was imposed, so to speak, and cuts were made, the Supreme Court ultimately in the Superior Court shot it down. So I think it just made an additional expense for the city of East Providence and did not solve the problem.
I think that working with the contract that was just in place is probably the best idea so that, you know, no one suffers in the interim. But I also agree that it shouldn't be, it shouldn't suspend it so long that, you know, things kind of just go on and on and on. So I also agree that contracts should be negotiated long before they're ready to expire. So I'm all for that.
In the past 2 years in Narragansett, we renegotiated, I think, 4 contracts, police, fire, and 2 unions. Over the course of those negotiations, I served in the firefighter union negotiations. I think we saved $55 million in post-employment benefits and $12 million in pension plans. And during the course of that, we started in January, we finished around, I think, June 29th, and the expiration date was June 30th. And it was good that it would continue on past June 30th because we did have that option. But that deadline was good to have too because we worked hard to get there. So I think the extension throughout the next period is good because sometimes you don't even sign the contracts until a little after it expires. So I think it just makes common sense and we need more of that around here.
Well, Tonto, it's just you and me, because I don't think we should keep a contract in perpetuity. When the contract ends, if we haven't agreed with the union to do what's necessary, then we can make a decision as to what happens then. But where's the incentive to settle if you automatically extend a contract that's in existence? Once again, we've got a free market here. Let's observe the bargaining ability, and if a contract is taking a long time and there doesn't seem to be a solution, then, well, that's one of the advantages of having no continuation.
Do you think there's wasteful spending in the state budget? Name specific examples, Ms. Kessler.
I do believe there is wasteful spending in the state budget. I would have to go line by line to actually identify examples of it. I think more needs to be done around DCYF budget for sure. I think it's costing a lot of money for us to have kids in residential treatment when they can be placed in foster homes in a loving environment with less cost involved there. So yes, I do believe that there is waste in the budget.
Well, we have an $8 billion budget, so my personal thoughts on that is most of it is waste. If we were to cut the budget by 10%, just 10%, we would have so much more money to fund the schools, to fix the roads. There'd be so much we could do. It'd be more money in people's pockets, people would have more money to spend. The budget is out of control. Half of the budget to me is wasteful spending. You would have to go line by line by line to see what is actually in the budget. If any of you had the chance to actually see the budget that the governor puts on our desk, it's this big. It's literally bigger than the size of a phone book. And the reason why I vote against the budget, every single year I vote against the budget, because the budget is too big, there's too much in it, and not one representative in that house has the time to read that entire budget. So how are you going to vote on something that you have not read? And I will continue to do so.
I think the biggest cut in the state budget that is warranted, as far as I've been able to find in the last 2 years of serving in the House, is waste and fraud. Ken Block was apparently highly successful in Texas in finding waste and fraud in social payment programs. I quite frankly, after this election is over, and if I'm successful, that's one of the first people I'm going to call, because he had done a report and was sworn to secrecy that he had presented it to Governor Chafee. I'd like to see what that report said, because I think that there are hundreds of millions of dollars that Ken has identified, and I'd like to take advantage of those opportunities.
We've increased our budget $1 billion in 2 years. Why hasn't anybody ever thought about requiring key departments to use zero-based budgeting? I mean, it just makes so much sense. I know it's a lot of hard work, and I know that departments probably won't want to hear it, but if you start off with zero and you have to look at what your expenses are going to be, I mean, that's what businesses do. And I mean, you would have to look at every single thing and request that amount of money, and you'd know where that money was gonna go. So I don't understand why we haven't adopted that, at least some of our key departments. I think it's essential.
I think we need real leadership at the State House to make significant change, not just in the state budget, but also across municipalities. There's no question we repeat services over and over within miles of each other. I think that the state could begin, with leaders like these at this table, could begin to incentivize ways for the towns to share service, whether it's purchasing or some other area. Because we just repeat things over and over. And that just causes more money to be spent. Every year the budget goes up, whether it's in a town or a state. So I think we need to take a wholesale look at how we do things and how we can change things. Because 39 cities and towns doing the same thing over and over just doesn't work. So that's a step in the right direction, I think.
Absolutely, James. And Sharon, same for your suggestion. You know, we're looking for where do we cut, and who's going to do the cutting? Well, who's going to stand up and has got the guts to say, you know, let's cut the state budget by 5%. Department heads, you people get in here. Where are you going to do it? Dare to be different. One good reason for the Constitutional Convention is you can put a line item veto in there and give the executive the power to make changes. We have 38 studios. We have resource recovery. And, you know, those are huge items. And those come right on rolling over us. And so I think it's good to look for the small stuff, but let's put somebody in charge up there. Let's get some leadership. And let's see if we can get some of this money back. Please.
I agree with James in trying to realize more savings through shared services across municipalities. I've been involved with that effort. Department of Health and Human Services also implemented, I think in relation to something you said, Bob, about Ken Block, is they have a waste fraud division to detect fraud and go after it. I've also personally been a leader in performance metrics across government in various departments, and making sure that we're getting the biggest bang for a buck with effective and efficient government. Including in that, I sponsored a law that requires performance metrics of our quasi-public agencies, as well as the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation. And have also sponsored legislation to have somebody be like a permanent watchdog as an inspector general, because of legislation that we've had. So those are the measures that I would certainly continue to pursue. Thank you.
Well, it is 8:45, so we have come to the time of closing statements. Each of you have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we will begin in the reverse order, starting with Senator Sheehan.
Thank you. Again, I thank the Northeast Independent and the NK Chamber of Commerce for holding this candidates forum and inviting us here on this lovely evening. We are fortunate to live in a beautiful state along with some great neighbors here, but that's not enough. We need to redouble our efforts to provide more opportunities to our residents to maintain or improve their quality of life here in the Ocean State, their home. This will require continued investments in infrastructure and education. It also means finding ways to further incentivize job development. Of course, our government needs to function more efficiently and effectively to be a true partner in this pursuit. If re-elected, I will work to secure greater funding for education, especially full-day K, which I actually initially put legislation in about 10 years ago. I will also work to gain passage of legislation to reward businesses for job growth, as well as provide support for new business startups. Further, I will continue to push for less government red tape and more efficient expenditure of the taxpayer dollars. They work hard for those dollars. Lastly, I will not rest until the General Assembly once again operates under a state code of ethics. This will help restore a measure of trust in government that is sorely needed these days. Without this trust, we cannot have good leadership required to move our state forward. If you don't believe in your leaders, we will not move forward. I thank you for your time tonight, and I very much appreciate your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Okay, that's me.
Well, in the absence of our leader, thank you for coming, and thank the other members of the panel and all the people who are involved in putting this discussion on. But let's lay it on the line. We live in the ocean state. It's the best when we're on top of the water, but we're underneath the water now. And it's our government holding us down. We need people in the General Assembly and government who understand and live business and who run businesses which drive economic engines we need to get our employment and economy back on track. It's going to take leadership, teamwork, patience, foresight, time, a spirit of cooperation, and an iron will to make it happen and follow through. Decisive leadership, imagination. The status quo must go. Rhode Island government is broken, and we need honest, ethical, real leadership to fix it. That's why I'm here. Let's go, little Rhodey. Let's get to work.
Thank you. It's been a great crowd. Again, my name is James Callahan. I'm a candidate for State Senate District 35, representing East Greenwich, North Kingstown, Narragansett, and South Kingstown. For too long, we have neglected the future of our great state. We've mortgaged the future of our children for bad bets. At the same time, we've let our taxes run high while our infrastructure crumbles. The days of short-sighted decision-making has to end, as well as insider politics. As former prosecutor and now president of the Narragansett Town Council, I've been able to make difficult but prudent decisions that benefit our citizens today and tomorrow. In the past 2 years, we've saved the town $55 million in post-employment benefits through contract negotiations. We've kept our tax rate very low, and we've made strides to improve the quality of life for our residents. I want the same opportunity to do that for District 35 in the State Senate. Our legislation needs new voices for a new generation. Only when you have that, we begin to move forward. Just as in the state budget, the numbers do not lie. A change in party leadership at the State House, and either side, is just not on the horizon. Any real change is going to come from within. I'm running because I think I can help make that happen. I want choice and opportunity for our children, things that should be simple. To drive on safe roads and bridges, to attend first-class public schools, including full-day kindergarten, and the opportunity to stay in Rhode Island and raise a family. For too long, that has been missing. It's a basic principle of society. Through intelligent reform, a new way of doing business, and strong ethics legislation, we can get Rhode Island back on track. I want to thank Ms. Pugh, Ms. Boardman, the Independent, and the Chamber for hosting us tonight, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 4th to move Rhode Island forward. Thank you.
It's great to see so many people come out and get engaged, so thank you all for doing that on a rainy night. Thank you, Martha, thank you, the Independent, for good questions. I really do appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity to look everyone in the eye and just have you get a feel for, you know, who I am and what I think. It's not easy to talk to a bunch of people that you've never seen before in a situation like this with so many great people. So when you're a little nervous, it kind of does come out. But I have a vision for Rhode Island, and that vision is to be the kind of legislator that you can call. People can access you. You do the job because you want to do it. You want to make Rhode Island better. there are opportunities here that we've not tapped into. You know, we've kind of lost ourselves along the way. People, when you think about people leaving or people not coming or just the general doldrums of Rhode Island, you know, it shouldn't be that way. This place is full of great people, full of opportunity. With that being said, I kind of have some ideas that I'd like to share that I think will, you know, I haven't heard anybody talk about, but I think are important. I think we need to offer tax credits to our college graduates who work here for at least 3 years instead of having them leave. I think we need to aggressively market Rhode Island to out-of-state businesses and young workers. This place has so much opportunity. It's artistic, it's beautiful, and we also need to really think about why businesses don't want to stay here or don't want to come here. We are number 50 or 49 in business unfriendliness. That is unacceptable. You know, I could give you a whole list of reasons why businesses feel the way they do. So you need to have somebody who goes to the state, who has that kind of a mind, and who actually really does care about the people, all the people, the seniors right to the young people. I would be that person. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you to the Chamber and to the Northeast Independent for putting this on, and for you folks who came out tonight on what sounds like a monsoon behind me against the windows. My objective 2 years ago was to run for public office to see if I could do something about creating jobs and cutting taxes to improve our economy. I did that. As a freshman legislator, I was able to get the estate tax reform passed. I encouraged and we passed a 22% reduction in the corporate tax. Original art, which is so important to Whitford, is now sales tax free. But I want to eliminate the minimum corporate tax if I'm reelected. In education, we froze tuition at the state universities and colleges for 2 years. And we created a partnership between businesses and unemployed. But I'd like to explore the idea of a first-year tuition free for an in-state student if they promise to stay for 3 years after graduation. And we have to stop bashing teachers. That's not the answer to education problems. I'd like to see a statewide tourism coordinator, and I want to continue to try to see what I can do to clear the way for businesses and red tape. We've done a lot. We've rooted out some corruption. We've established an infrastructure bank for cities and towns to rebuild their roads and bridges. But we need to continue. It's not done yet. The ship had a big hole when I started 2 years ago. That hole has, in some respects, been repaired. But this town, NK, we're known as the skippers. So as the skippers, let's see if we can fix that ship and continue to fix that ship for the benefit of North Kingstown citizens as well as the state of Rhode Island. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank everyone here, the Chamber and the Independent. As your state representative, I am really pleased to share with you that my focus and concerns have always been about the community and will remain so. I am happy to help the kids in the community, watching the games, talking to the parents and the fans. Some things that I've done for the kids. $5,000 was provided for the new Stony Lane playground, a wonderful place where our kids can play safely. Another $5,000 went to Smith Castle to have much needed new fence. $2,000 was provided to our North Kingstown American Little League team field. And I look forward every season to supporting the Exeter West Greenwich golf tournaments. And most recently, $2,000 was awarded to Chance to Dance for low-income children who can stay in the arts. Our North Kingstown Food Pantry serves the needy among us and does yeoman's work. I am proud of the fundraiser that I had for the North Kingstown Food Pantry. We collected almost 400 pounds worth of food and $300 worth of gift certificates to Dave's Market. I was also excited to receive a phone call from the principal of Stony Lane Elementary School when they became a Blue Ribbon School. I purchased the Stony Lane Blue Ribbon plaque that is now on the side of the building. And it will be there forever. And I am so proud of that school and so proud of the students there. While our youngest school must be supported, so too must our veterans in every possible way. I stand ready to help and thank them for their service to our country. All you veterans in the audience tonight, thank you so much for your service. I will proudly advocate for their needs as a member of the Board of Directors of Operation Stand Down and as on the Veterans Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives. Since my recent appointment to Vice Chairwoman of House Judiciary, I sponsored and floor managed with unanimous passage a sex trafficking bill, H 7916, that passed unanimously in the House. And I am out of time, so you have a great night. Thank you. Thanks again for your time.
I want to once again say thank you to the independent, the chamber, the candidates, and the voters. The race for House District 31 is an important one. We need to elect leaders who can get things accomplished, get results that will move this state forward. The grandstanding needs to end. We need to move Rhode Island forward. When elected, I will work tirelessly on your behalf. I will work to create jobs, provide more state aid to our schools, rebuild the infrastructure to put people back to work while creating better roads and bridges to support small business growth. I am seeking office because I have a long history of public service. I am also seeking office as I know I can get results. I can get things done. I promise to work on important issues. House District 31 needs professional leadership, a leader who can work across the aisle to get results. I am that leader. Rhode Island has the third highest unemployment rate in the country. We've been in the top 3 way too long. We can't continue to do things the same way they've been done. Now is the opportunity for new leadership across the state that will bring ideas, innovation, and hope for what is possible. I will be that leadership for House District 31. We need to have faith in our elected officials at the State House that they will represent the best interests of our communities and put us on the right track to succeed in New England and in the country. I am the candidate you can have faith in. I humbly ask for your vote on November 4th.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for coming tonight and participating in the forum. I'd like to thank the audience for coming tonight and also being here. We have numerous questions that are left in the bowls from all of you and from people who submitted questions to both the Chamber and the Northeast Independent. Please take some time to email your candidates up here those questions and get those questions asked for yourself. I'd love to see all of these people here at a forum like this. Stay engaged in North Kingstown. The town of North Kingstown is going into a full comprehensive plan rewrite. Make your opinion known. There will be many forums that you can attend to make sure that what's happening in North Kingstown is true to what you want and so that our representatives can hear from you what you want as well. So please do stay engaged. Thank you all for coming tonight.